My name is Olivia, and I thought I knew what friendship meant until Melissa's wedding, or rather, until I wasn't invited to it. Melissa and I had been friends for nearly a decade. We met during orientation week of college, two nervous freshmen who bonded over our shared love of true crime podcasts and oat milk lattes. For 4 years, we were inseparable, roommates, study partners, each other's emergency contact. After graduation, when many college friendships fade, ours only grew stronger. I was there when she met James at a mutual friend's birthday party 3 years ago. I listened to her gush about him after their first date, and I was the first person she texted when he finally said, "I love you," 6 months later. When James proposed on their 2-year anniversary, Melissa called me sobbing with happiness before she'd even left the restaurant. "You'll be one of my bridesmaids, obviously," she told me that night, her voice giddy with excitement. "I can't imagine getting married without you there." I was touched. I'd never been a bridesmaid before, and the thought of standing beside my best friend on her big day filled me with joy. I immediately started saving for whatever expenses might come up: the dress, the bachelorette party, a meaningful gift. That's what good friends do, right? The engagement was a whirlwind. Melissa created a wedding planning group chat with several friends, including me. We'd share ideas, comment on venues, debate color schemes. I suggested the botanical gardens where her parents had gotten married 30 years earlier, and she loved the idea so much she booked it the next day. "You know me so well," she texted with a heart emoji. But then, about 4 months before the wedding, something shifted. The group chat grew quieter. My texts to Melissa about wedding plans went unanswered for days, and when she did respond, her replies were short, almost dismissive. "Everything okay with wedding planning?" I asked her during one of our increasingly rare coffee dates. She stirred her latte absently. "Oh yeah, it's just... James and I have been talking, and we're thinking of scaling things back. His parents are contributing a lot financially, and they have some strong opinions." I nodded sympathetically. Wedding planning stress is real. "Anything I can do to help?" She didn't quite meet my eyes. "Not really. We're handling it." A week later, I received a text from her that made my stomach drop. "Olivia, I need to talk to you about the wedding. James and I have decided to make it a much smaller event than we originally planned. Basically just family and a couple of childhood friends. I'm so sorry, but we're having to cut the guest list significantly. I hope you understand it's nothing personal. We're just trying to keep it intimate. We'll definitely celebrate together after the honeymoon. Love you." I stared at my phone, reading and rereading the message. Something felt off. We'd been planning this wedding together for months. I'd helped her choose the venue, had spent hours discussing every detail, and now, suddenly, I wasn't even invited? But I didn't want to be that friend, the one who makes someone else's wedding about themselves, so I swallowed my hurt and typed a supportive response. "Of course I understand. Weddings are expensive and complicated. Just know I'm here if you need anything, and I can't wait to celebrate with you whenever works. Love you too." She responded with a simple heart emoji, and that was it. The topic of her wedding became something we danced around during our increasingly infrequent get-togethers. She'd mention it vaguely: "Wedding planning is so stressful," but never shared any specific details. I didn't push. I figured if she wanted to talk about it, she would. As the wedding date approached, I found myself wondering more and more about the sudden change. Had I done something wrong? Was there a falling out I wasn't aware of? I replayed our recent interactions in my head, but couldn't pinpoint anything that would explain being cut from the guest list so abruptly. The weekend of the wedding arrived. I sent Melissa a heartfelt text that morning, wishing her all the happiness in the world. She responded with a quick "thank you" and nothing more. To distract myself from the strange emptiness I felt, I booked a day at a local spa. A little self-care seemed appropriate. As I sat in the sauna, letting the heat melt away my tension, I tried to focus on the positives. Friendships evolve, people grow apart. Maybe this was just a natural drift that happened to coincide with her wedding. Still, something nagged at me. This didn't feel like natural drift. It felt like exclusion. After my massage, I checked my phone and saw several Instagram notifications. Our mutual friend Taylor had posted a series of photos. Curious, I opened the app and felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. There on my screen was Melissa in her wedding dress, surrounded by bridesmaids. 5 of them, all in matching sage green dresses. I recognized every face: Taylor, Jessica, Kate, Zoe, and Rachel, all from our college friend group, all people who, like me, had been in that original wedding planning chat. My hands shook as I swiped through the photos. There were pictures of the bridal party getting ready, mimosas in hand, the ceremony, which clearly had at least 50 guests, the reception, with elaborately decorated tables and a 3-tier cake. This wasn't a family-only wedding. This wasn't scaled back or intimate. This was exactly the wedding we'd been planning all along, just without me. I put my phone down and took a deep breath, trying to process what I was seeing. The realization was painful. Melissa had lied to me. She hadn't cut back her wedding, she had cut me out of it. As I scrolled further, I saw more photos from other friends. Everyone seemed to be there. People from college, co-workers, even acquaintances I knew Melissa wasn't particularly close with. One photo showed a table card labeled "College Friends," filled with familiar faces. Everyone except me. I felt a hot tear roll down my cheek and quickly wiped it away. I was in a public spa, for crying out loud. I wasn't going to break down here. Instead, I did something I rarely do. I took a selfie. Just me, wrapped in the spa robe, looking peaceful despite the turmoil inside. I posted it with the caption, "Grateful for peace, not performances. Sometimes self-care is the best care." It wasn't overtly pointed, but anyone who knew the situation would understand. I wasn't going to call Melissa out publicly or make a scene. That wasn't my style. But I also wasn't going to pretend I didn't know I'd been deliberately excluded. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing with text messages. From Taylor: "Olivia, I thought you knew about the wedding. Melissa told us you couldn't come because of a family commitment." From Jessica: "Are you okay? Just saw your post and realized you weren't at the wedding. Did something happen between you and Melissa?" Even Rachel, who I was never particularly close with: "Hey girl, missed you today. Melissa said you had something important you couldn't miss." My stomach churned as the full picture emerged. Melissa hadn't just excluded me, she'd lied to everyone else about why I wasn't there, created a fictional excuse for my absence so no one would question it. I didn't respond to any of them immediately. I needed time to process, to decide how I wanted to handle this. So I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and finished my spa day, trying to actually embody the peace I'd claimed in my caption. By the time I got home that evening, I had over 20 messages from various friends, all expressing confusion or concern. Apparently, my absence had been noticed and my cryptic post had raised questions. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, and finally decided to respond to Taylor, who I trusted the most. I wasn't invited. Melissa told me they were keeping it family only. Clearly that wasn't the case, but I don't want to create drama on her wedding day. We can talk more later. Taylor's response was immediate. "What? Olivia, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. That's horrible." More messages followed from others as word spread. It seemed everyone was shocked to learn I'd been deliberately excluded. Part of me was comforted by their outrage on my behalf, but another part just felt tired. Tired of trying to understand why someone I considered a close friend would go to such lengths to keep me away from her wedding while pretending to everyone else that it was my choice. I turned off my phone and went to bed early, emotionally exhausted. The next morning, I woke to a text from Melissa herself. "Hey, saw your post yesterday. Looks like you had a nice day. Thanks again for understanding about the wedding. Can't wait to catch up soon." The casual tone, the complete lack of acknowledgement of what she'd done, it was almost impressive in its audacity. She was still pretending, even though she must have known by now that our friends were aware of the truth. I didn't respond. What could I possibly say? 3 days later, after Melissa had returned from her mini honeymoon, a weekend at a nearby beach resort, she suggested meeting for coffee. I agreed, not because I was eager to see her, but because I wanted closure. I needed to understand why she had done what she did. We met at our usual cafe, though it didn't feel usual anymore. Nothing did. Melissa arrived looking tanned and happy, wedding ring gleaming on her finger. She hugged me as if nothing had changed, as if she hadn't just delivered one of the most hurtful rejections of my adult life. "So how have you been?" she asked brightly after we'd gotten our drinks. "I feel like we haven't properly caught up in forever." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't noticed before, a nervousness behind her smile, a tension in how she held herself. She knew this wasn't a normal coffee date. "Why did you lie to me about your wedding?" I asked directly. No accusation in my tone, just a simple question. Her smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "You told me it was family only. that you had to cut the guest list, but that wasn't true, was it? All our other friends were there, some were even bridesmaids. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. It's complicated, Olivia. Then uncomplicate it for me. We've been friends for almost 10 years. I think I deserve an explanation. She sighed, setting down her coffee cup. It wasn't my decision, okay? It was James. Well, James and his family. I waited, saying nothing. They didn't like how close we were, she continued, her voice dropping. James always felt like you and I had this connection that excluded him. His mom picked up on it too. She said it wasn't healthy for me to be so dependent on a friendship going into marriage. I felt my eyebrows rise. So your solution was to lie to me and pretend I wasn't invited because the wedding was small? When it clearly wasn't? I didn't know what else to do. Her voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. She lowered it again. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did hurt me, Melissa, not just by excluding me, but by lying about it, and then lying to everyone else about why I wasn't there. She had the grace to look ashamed. I know, I panicked. I told Taylor and the others you had a family thing, because I didn't want them asking questions. I thought it would be easier. Easier for whom? I asked quietly. Certainly not for me, when I saw all those Instagram posts of a wedding I was told was family only, with half our friend group as bridesmaids. She winced. I didn't think about social media. I should have warned everyone not to post. And there it was, the problem laid bare. She hadn't considered how I would feel seeing those posts because she hadn't really considered me at all. Her concern was managing appearances, not the impact of her actions on someone who cared deeply about her. So let me make sure I understand, I said, keeping my voice steady. Your husband and his family didn't like our friendship, so instead of talking to me about it like an adult, you lied to me, excluded me from your wedding, and then lied to all our friends about why I wasn't there. Is that about right? When you put it like that, how else should I put it? She stared down at her coffee. I was trying to start my marriage off right. James is my husband now. His family is my family. I had to prioritize what they wanted. And what about what you wanted? I asked. Did you want me at your wedding? Her silence was answer enough. You know, I said after a moment, if you'd just been honest. If you'd said James is uncomfortable with our friendship, or I'm trying to create some distance as I start this new chapter, I would have been hurt, but I would have respected your honesty. It's the lies that I can't get past. She nodded slowly. I know. I handled it badly. I'm sorry. Are you? I asked, because from where I'm sitting, you got exactly what you wanted. You pleased your husband and his family, you had all our other friends at your wedding, you just didn't have to deal with the discomfort of being honest with me. That's not fair, she protested weakly. Neither was what you did. We sat in silence for a long moment. The cafe bustled around us, people going about their normal days, having normal conversations. How strange it felt to be sitting here, dismantling a decade of friendship over cooling lattes. So what now? She finally asked. Are we still friends? It was the question I'd been asking myself for days. Was this a friendship worth saving? Could we move past this betrayal? I don't know, I answered honestly. I need time to think about what this friendship actually means to both of us, because right now it feels very one-sided. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I understand. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I miss you. I stood up, gathering my things. I miss who I thought you were too. I walked out of the cafe feeling oddly light. The hurt was still there, but alongside it was a new clarity. Sometimes people show you who they really are, and while the revelation may be painful, there's a certain peace in seeing the truth. Over the next few weeks, I received more messages from our mutual friends. Many expressed outrage on my behalf. Others shared similar experiences of feeling sidelined since Melissa's relationship with James began. It seemed I wasn't the only one noticing changes, just the one who had experienced the most dramatic exclusion. Melissa texted occasionally casual messages as if trying to resume normal friendship without addressing the elephant in the room. I responded politely but briefly. I wasn't ready to pretend everything was fine. 2 months after the wedding, Taylor hosted a dinner party and invited both of us. I decided to go. I needed to see if I could be in the same room as Melissa without feeling that sharp sting of betrayal. She arrived with James the first time I'd seen him since the engagement party. He looked uncomfortable when he spotted me, confirming what I'd suspected. He knew exactly what had happened. He'd been part of the decision. The evening was awkward at times, but also illuminating. I watched as Melissa deferred to James on everything from which wine to drink to which stories she could tell. I saw how she checked his reaction before laughing at jokes, how she seemed to be performing a version of herself that she thought he wanted. It made me sad, not just for myself and our damaged friendship, but for her. I wondered if she realized what she was giving up in her effort to be the perfect wife. As the night went on, I found myself enjoying conversations with our other friends, laughing genuinely, feeling connected. I realized that while losing Melissa's friendship hurt, I hadn't lost everything. I had other relationships, ones built on mutual respect and honesty. When it was time to leave, Melissa caught me by the door. "It was good to see you," she said, her voice tentative. "I've missed this, all of us together." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw both the friend I'd loved and the person who had hurt me deeply. "I've missed it too," I said sincerely, "but I've also learned something important these past few months." "What's that?" "That I deserve friends who see me as a priority, not a problem. Friends who tell me the truth even when it's difficult." She nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. "I wish I could go back and do things differently." "We can't go back," I said gently. "We can only go forward." James appeared behind her, hand possessively on her shoulder. "Ready to go, babe?" She glanced at him, then back at me. "Yeah, just a second." To me, she said, "Can we get coffee sometime, just us?" I considered her request. Part of me wanted to say no, to protect myself from further disappointment. But another part remembered the years of genuine friendship we'd shared before all this. "Maybe," I said honestly, "but I need you to understand something. I'm not interested in a friendship where I have to compete with your husband for validity. And I'm definitely not interested in one where honesty is optional." She winced but nodded. "I understand." As I watched them leave, James guiding her with a hand on her lower back, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. The Melissa I had known for a decade was changing, or perhaps she was simply revealing a side of herself that had always been there, hidden beneath the surface of our friendship. Either way, I was changing too. The old me might have forgiven the betrayal immediately, might have contorted myself to fit whatever narrow space she was willing to allow me in her new life, but standing there in Taylor's doorway, I knew I wouldn't do that anymore. 3 days later, I posted another photo on Instagram, me with Taylor and Jessica at a local art exhibition, all of us smiling genuinely. My caption was simple: "Surrounded by authentic friendship, there's nothing more valuable." Melissa liked the photo but didn't comment. I didn't expect her to. In the months that followed, our friendship entered a new phase, more distant, more careful, stripped of the blind trust I once had. We still met occasionally for coffee, still exchanged birthday messages, still existed in the same friend group, but something fundamental had changed. I no longer shared my deepest thoughts with her, no longer expected to be included in her important moments. It was a loss, certainly, but it also created space for other friendships to deepen, for new connections to form. Taylor and I grew closer. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected while prioritizing Melissa. I even started dating someone who valued honesty as much as I did. A year after the wedding, Melissa texted me on a random Tuesday night. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened with my wedding and how I treated you. I was wrong. I was insecure and afraid of starting my marriage with any tension, so I took the easy way out. You deserved better. I don't expect this to fix anything, but I wanted you to know that I understand now why what I did was so hurtful. I'm truly sorry." I read the message several times, feeling the sharp edges of my anger soften just a little. Not enough to return to how things were, that was impossible now, but enough to acknowledge the apology for what it was. A step toward honesty. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "It means a lot to hear you acknowledge what happened." Her response came quickly. "I miss our friendship. The real one, not the superficial thing we have now." I took a deep breath before typing. "I miss it too, but I think what I missed doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it never did." "Can we try to build something new?" she asked, "something honest this time?" I didn't answer right away. Building something new would require trust, and trust had to be earned. It would take time if it was possible at all. But as I set my phone down, I realized that the pain that had once consumed me had faded to a dull ache. The Instagram posts that had once felt like daggers were now just pictures of a wedding I hadn't attended. The betrayal that had seemed world-ending had become just one chapter in a much longer story. Maybe that was the most important lesson in all of this, that even the deepest hurts eventually lose their sharpness, that friendships, like all relationships, either evolve or dissolve but rarely stay the same, and that sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is simply recognizing when someone has shown you who they truly are and believing them. 2 days later, I finally responded to Melissa's question. Maybe we can build something new, but it starts with honesty and ends with respect. I'm willing to try if you are. As I hit send, I felt neither the blind trust of our old friendship nor the burning resentment of the betrayal. Instead, I felt something quieter and more grounded. The knowledge that whatever happened next, I would be okay. Because in losing what I thought was an essential friendship, I had found something more valuable, the understanding that my worth wasn't determined by who included me or excluded me, but by my own commitment to authenticity. And that was something no wedding invitation or lack thereof could ever take away.